In this Elden Ring video, I'm going to be going over my Bloodblade build. This is a beginner warrior build that uses 2 weapons to set the bleeding status effect on enemies effectively. I know that I said I'd be getting to my advanced arcane archer guide. However, it seems like we're so close to having one video for each class, so I think I'm going to do warrior and hero real quick, and then we'll get on to the more advanced builds. So for this build, you're going to use the warrior class. I like it because it comes with dual blades and you can dual wield immediately. And the scimitars attack rather quickly. They have a very fast moveset. And what you're going for with this build is trying to set bleed on enemies by putting bleed ashes of war on both scimitars so that when you hit rapidly, you can inflict the bleed status effect as you fill their bar very quickly. In order to make this happen, you need to head to Fort Height and get the Bloody Slash Ash of War, and then you're going to have to duplicate it. So you need to go buy like one of the lost ash things from the merchant that's in the southwest part of Weeping Peninsula, which costs about 3,000 runes or so. And then you need to get to Round Table Hole. The easiest way to do that is just to go to Margit, let him kill him, and then talk to Melina at the Site of Grace there, and she'll take you there, and then you can go to the blacksmith and duplicate that Ash of War, and you can put one on each scimitar. You're obviously going to want to upgrade these as fast as you can, and the best way to do that is to go up on the hill there in Stormhill and have the troll smash the stone thing, grab the shards there, and then go into the tunnel, grab a bunch there. That should be able to get you somewhere close to +2, otherwise you might have to farm some shards from the soldiers there at Gatefront Ruins. You can also get some better armor there, so it's not a total wipe from doing it. Other equipment you'll eventually want for this build are the Turtle Talisman. This build is extremely stamina hungry, so you're going to want that so that you recover your stamina quickly so you can get back to swinging. And also the Erd Tree's Favor. This also increases your stamina, HP, and your equip load. This will allow you to wear heavier armor, take more hits, and also increases that stamina so that you can get more swings. Talking about attributes, the 2 that you really want to prioritize are Endurance and Vigor. You want to get these up to 20 as quick as you can. It doesn't exactly matter which order you do it, or if you kind of go a little bit here, a little bit there to each one. But you want to shoot for getting them both to 20, and then you're going to start pumping Dexterity to increase your damage. So the general strategy for this build is obviously to hit fast and often in order to build up the status effect bleed bar of the enemy to rip off a good chunk of their health. The way bleed works in this game is that every time you hit them with a weapon that builds up bleed, they gain a certain amount of their bar based on the weapon that you're hitting them with and their bleed resistance. So imagine when you get hit with a bleed weapon, you'll see your bars start to fill. Imagine they have the exact same bar, and it's different for each character, obviously, that you're facing, and their resistances play a role. So some enemies are going to take a lot longer to bleed, and some enemies are going to bleed really, really quickly. One thing to note about this bleed bar, just like your bleed bar, is that the second you stop attacking, that bleed bar starts to drain, meaning that you're going to have to do more work if you wait in between attacks in order to get that bleed bar full, because it's going to start clearing itself just like yours does. This means you can't just run in and hit once and then run away and wait 10 seconds and run and hit once like you would with some builds. You need to get in there, get in 3 or 4 strikes, back away, get in 3 or 4 strikes as quick as you can in order to rip that bleed off. Again, it's dangerous doing this though, because sometimes that, knowing that your bleed is almost about to proc on an enemy or it's close or you can feel it coming because you've hit them so many times, will trigger you to be more aggressive than you should be and you can get yourself killed. So you have to prioritize, building up that bleed bar and staying alive, and you can't always just go 100% aggressive because some enemies are just going to kill you regardless. In some fights, it's a good idea to get that first bleed ripped off quickly and then just fight normally and not to worry too much about the bleed status effect, particularly on like harder bosses. That way you're not getting yourself killed by trying to be too aggressive, and then when the bleed bar rips off every now and then, it's kind of like a nice surprise and you shouldn't be counting on it necessarily. Another thing I want to mention is that just from my own anecdotal observation, it seems like each time that you set a bleed on an enemy and rip off a chunk of health, their bleed bar gets larger, meaning that it'll take more hits to bleed an enemy a second time than it will the first time. I don't know if this is 100% true, but it just seems that way from the way I've been playing. You can test this for yourself when you're facing bosses with large health pools, but it seems like you're going to have to do more and more hits, and then, the third time you're trying to get a bleed, it'll be even more than the second time. So keep that in mind, and don't just go gung-ho because that first one went off quickly. That second one or third one might take a lot longer. Now let's talk about the scimitars themselves and the best way to get bleed rapidly on enemies. The best attack, my favorite attack with these 2 weapons, is the sprinting L1. This sort of dashes you forward and you slash with both weapons real quick. That's 4 hits. That builds a lot of bleed bar. That's not 2 hits or 1 hit, that's 4 hits, and that puts a good amount of bleed bar on an enemy. Another really good attack with these weapons is the jumping L1. This again does another sort of cross slash animation that hits 4 times, which is really good for setting bleed. Between the sprint L1 and the jump L1, these are the two attacks you want to prioritize when you can. You'll obviously have some regular L1s in there when when you're attacking, but you want to try and make sure you always get sprint L1s and jump L1s when you can. Rolling L1 gives 3 attacks, so it's not quite as good as jumping or sprinting, but it's better than nothing. And you usually want to, roll forward L1 or jump forward L1 or sprint forward L1 after any attack the enemy does in order to punish it. And if you have time, you're going to hit L1 again to try and get 2 more hits if you can. But don't be greedy and try and get those running L1s, jumping L1s when possible. The Ashes of War for this ability, Bloody Slash, does sort of like a blood slash forward after a kind of a long windup that reminds me of Sekiro a bit. And it hits like an absolute freight train. But it's kind of hard to land because it's at an angle, so sometimes you'll miss an enemy just by a hair because the hitboxes are so precise in this game. So it works much better against big enemies that are harder to miss. Additionally, it does have like a second or 2 wind up before it fires off, so you have to make sure you have an opening in order to fire it. The best time, in my opinion, to do this is after you've rolled backward. Roll backward right into that L2 and then pull it off as fast as you can. One of the reasons we have a lot of vigor for this fight, that you want to keep increasing vigor, is because you want to be able to use this ability somewhat often because it's really good. It gives you a little bit of range. If enemies are stuck on walls or in the air, flying enemies, you can hit them. And it does really, really good damage. So you want to use it sometimes. You're not going to use it all the time, but it is very situational. Just a couple other final tips before we wrap up this video. The Blessed Talisman is also pretty good for this build because of the fact that you use that slash and you hurt yourself. This will regenerate that health slowly and make it so that you don't have to worry about using this ability at all. I wouldn't replace the Turtle Talisman with it. I would probably replace Erdtree's Favor if possible, because that way you keep that stamina recovery, which you absolutely need. In terms of armor for this build, you want to get away with the heaviest armor you possibly can and still medium roll. So farm armor, buy armor, whatever you got to do to get heavier armor, get heavier armor, because you're going to trade damage sometimes. You're going to get hit sometimes in order to press that last couple of hits to get that bleed ripped off an enemy. And you want to take the least damage you can, but you cannot sacrifice that medium roll. And lastly, you can do the same setup with other weapons. It doesn't have to be 2 scimitars. You could do it with 2 straight swords or 2 daggers if you want. I just happen to like that the warrior starts with both of these weapons. You can put Bloody Slash on both of them. I like the running moveset and jumping moveset of these weapons. It's very, very fast and hits very, very quickly. And I haven't tested all the other possible weapon combinations. I know daggers are very fast, but they have a little bit of trouble dealing with regular enemies that, you're not really trying to set bleed on. They're just trying to kill outright. So I didn't really like daggers all that much when I first tried it. But nonetheless, if you like the concept of the build, you can do it with other weapons. That's it for this build. The next build is going to be a hero build, focusing on the Zweihander and charging attacks. So you can look forward to that, and then we'll get on to some more advanced builds. I think my first advanced build might actually be an Enchanted Knight build, which will be sort of an evolution of the Spellblade. I've been working on the Arcane Archer, but it seems like it's going to be an endgame build because some of the items I need to make this build function are like really, really late in the game. Either way, we have a ton more builds coming, so stay tuned for those, and let us know what you think in the comments below.